Welcome to the Sustainable Development Lecture Series of the Eurasia Foundation, Narratives of the Anthropocene. My name is Berthold Kuhn. I work at Freie Universität Berlin as an international cooperation advisor to the European Commission, German Development Cooperation, and global think tanks. The title of my lecture is Megatrends Discourses as Powerful Narratives of Innovation and Change. The guiding question of my lecture will be: how do megatrends discourses address and anticipate challenges awaiting humanity in the new epoch of the Anthropocene? Why is it important to engage in megatrends and future studies? Our world has become more VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambivalent. Climate change, pandemics, new technologies will heavily impact our lives, and we should be prepared. Be prepared for the change which is going to happen. We may not be able to predict some so-called black swan events or the exact outbreaks of a flood, a drought, a pandemic, or a war, but we can collect pretty robust data on future scenarios. Climate change is a prime example. In management science, by the way, the answer to the VUCA crisis is also VUCA: vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. Let me introduce our latest book, Global Perspectives on Megatrends: The Future as Seen by Analysts and Researchers from Different World Regions. We cover 12 megatrends, 12 topics of utmost relevance for strategic foresight studies and for the future of humanity, within a horizon of around 10 to 15 years. It is not the first and will not be the last book on megatrends and future research. It's actually meant to complement the many reports of leading consulting firms and think tanks engaged in future research. McKinsey, Deloitte, PwC, Roland Berger in Germany have all published megatrends reports. Bertelsmann Foundation, one of the largest foundations in Germany, has ventured into megatrends research and forecasting reports. My co-author Dimitrios Margelos, an economist, political activist, and me wanted to adopt a comprehensive and global approach to megatrends, going beyond the tech trends, demography, and eco-trends. Those are also covered in our book, but we also included inequality and migration and other trends related to civilizational developments. Let me give you a bit of context. The pioneer book on megatrends was published by John Naisbitt in 1982. More than 14 million copies were sold in more than 50 countries. Since then, we've seen many more publications. Financial institutions and the investors community seem to be particularly interested. Fuchsbriefe, a financial news publisher in Germany, has just come out with a megatrends publication that aims to provide guidance to the investors community. Megatrends are connected with each other. They are overlapping, and some of the publications have come up with attractively designed future maps. They look like metro maps, and how the different trends connect to each other can be seen on these designs. Of course, there are other important frameworks which could empower us to reflect and to act on future challenges. Before diving deeper into the megatrends framework, I would like to refer to some other powerful reference frameworks, such as the SDG framework of the United Nations, which is chiefly promoted by UN agencies and international cooperation organizations. However, government at national and subnational levels, cities and cities alliances are also involved in the implementation of SDGs. We also find reference to the SDG framework in sustainability reports of multinational companies, including the financial industry. Many NGOs and development cooperation projects refer to and work with the SDGs. The Planetary Boundary Framework is an ecological framework concerned with the health of planet Earth. It defines safe operating spaces for humanity represented by 9 global processes. The Donut Economy Framework of Kate Raworth is another popular framework, popular by nonprofits, and it visualizes the relationships between ecological, social, and economic issues. The Megatrends Framework is of particular interest to the business and investment community. It covers the digitalization trends. Digitalization is not really thoroughly addressed by these frameworks. The 4 SDGs that specifically mention ICTs stress the enabling and empowering role of ICTs. ICTs are presented as universal technology for sustainable development, but there's no mentioning of the technologies themselves in terms of the sustainability of their life cycle in the SDG context. Here we see how important it is to also work with other frameworks. While we see lots of reference to megatrends, very few publications care to define the megatrends. We have come up with a relatively simple but concise model to define megatrends. The 5 criteria, the Pentagon factors that make up a megatrend are the following. Research, and particularly research coverage of the trend by researchers and analysts from different world regions. Second, level of political attention for a particular trend in a significant number of countries and regions. Third, significant interest from global investors. This acknowledges that investments have great potential to promote, to drive trends. Fourth, media coverage of the trend. This refers to traditional but also social media. And fifth factor is the strength of social movements and advocacy actions related to this trend. Which are the 12 megatrends that we identified? They include climate action and sustainability, digitalization, inequality, demography, urbanization and smart cities, health and nutrition trends, green economy, sustainable finance, multipolar world order and the future of multilateralism, democracy and governance innovations, and we have bundled together a couple of social trends under the term civilizational developments. These are diversity, individualization and loneliness, gender shift and identity politics, and last but not least, migration is another megatrend for us. Let's begin with the climate action and sustainability transformation trends. Which sub-trends, which key developments did we identify? We paid attention to decarbonization targets and CO2 neutrality targets of governments, of states, of cities, of companies, of institutions, for example, university. We paid attention to the special role of cities, to city alliances like C40, and to the high investments in renewable energies. We looked at the investments in carbon capture and storage. Emission trading is expanding to many sectors and industries in the future. New mobility concepts are implemented, and last but not least, sustainable tourism is also another sub-trend of climate action. Let me illustrate the power of the climate action trend. 137 countries have committed to carbon neutrality according to confirmed pledges to the carbon neutrality coalition and to recent policy statements by governments. And the number of countries is still increasing. The same applies to cities, regions, businesses, and investors. Yeah, we see a growing number of commitments, yeah, to decarbonization, to zero carbon, and so on. Higher education institutions have also committed to reach carbon neutrality targets, some by 2050 and some much earlier. And what we observe is a kind of a race to the zero carbon campaign. Carbon capture and storage is developing into a very important technology, and major multinational companies are launching important projects. Yeah, please see some of these examples on this slide. How will the trend of climate action and sustainability develop in the next decade? We will see a broadening and deepening of this trend in the next decade. Awareness of climate change will further continue to grow and spread quickly in almost all countries and regions, sectors and industries, accelerated by urbanization and smart city concepts. Emission trading will expand and become a major incentive for companies to cut emissions. The pressure on political leaders to arrive at far-reaching agreements under the auspices of the United Nations will further grow. But negotiations between the states at the big climate summits will become difficult, as we have seen at Sharm el-Sheikh COP27 conference, mainly because of the diversity of structural challenges in different countries and regions, and issues related to claims for financial compensation for losses attributed to climate change in the most vulnerable countries. The next couple of years will be characterized by the last remaining efforts from some organizations, politicians, individuals and interest groups to push back against progress, but such attempts will soon falter in the face of aggravation of climate change consequences. I would like to stress the importance of interconnected megatrends. The intersection of megatrends receives more and more attention. For example, digitalization, sustainability, and inequality. Yeah, so we see a lot of interest in greening IT, in green IT, in climate justice. It's important to address climate vulnerability and look at the consequences of these trends for different sections of the societies. Following climate action, the second big megatrend we address in our book is inequality. And inequality will be exacerbated in the context of asset inflation and greenflation, in the context of the war in Ukraine, rising energy prices, migration. It will hit many middle-class people in rich countries and also in emerging economies. This will spark strikes and protest movements, which will result in suppression even in some liberal democracies. We shall see increasing attention paid by the G20 countries to the issue of market regulation and taxation in an effort to increase tax revenues and regain the capacity to finance growing welfare states in the context of aging societies. A new era of strong government will most probably emerge, but this time it will be focused on working together as well as shaping markets to bring about socially desirable outcomes. North-South relations will become even more tense. Developing countries affected by climate change will become more assertive when it comes to compensation for the extraction of natural resources, and losses from climate change. The inequality issue will become a major political challenge for authoritarian regimes as well as for liberal democracies, and will not be confined to poorer countries. The fight against inequality and poverty reaction will remain at the top of the agenda of the United Nations. Digitalization is definitely a megatrend, and it's covered by almost all megatrends publication. Digitalization goes beyond digitization, because it affects the way we live and work. It will impact business models and lifestyles significantly, from healthcare to e-governance. Every sector will face a reckoning due to the disruption that digitalization brings along. The fast growth of data volumes and the significance of big data analysis will march on. Government regulations will proliferate, and tech companies will face even more scrutiny over their handling of data and their manner of operating. We've seen this happening in China and in many other countries. Cryptocurrencies will continue to fluctuate in the context of regulatory and political interventions and market volatilities. Blockchain technology will make further breakthrough and become more relevant. Demography. World population will still grow, but only for a little while. Demography trends will remain diverse. Aging societies will be the dominant trend in richer countries, while population growth will flatten in some developing countries. We shall continue to see low birth rates and high life expectancy in rich countries, which lead to shrinking populations and aging societies. We shall see growing populations in poorer regions, even though some will remain affected by the outbound migration of younger people, the degradation of natural resources, and deadly local conflicts. Urbanization and smart cities is another important megatrend that we will see developing in different countries and regions, in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, but also in America and Europe. We shall continue to see a strong and persistent relationship between urbanization and economic growth. Chinese technology firms will remain some of the key drivers of smart city development in Asia and in other parts of the world, with remarkable technological and communication transport advancements. More investment in mobility will make suburbs grow. Political attention will be paid to better urban-rural integration. The greening of the building and construction sector will advance. We will see many innovative green construction concepts. And we shall see a growing use of renewable and reusable materials in construction. Health and nutrition will attract more political attention and investment. New technologies, especially mRNA vaccinations, will be applied to combat more diseases. We shall see further breakthroughs in medical research and the proliferation of ethical commitments dealing with moral issues. Access to quality health care will become more politicized. We will see crisis situations in many countries. In Berlin, we have not enough hospital beds for children. The rise of superbugs, microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites, which mutate to possess genes that protect them against antimicrobial drugs, will present a grave danger to all countries, as these microorganisms know no borders. The food trend is developing an enormous dynamic, especially in affluent societies. The number of people following a vegetarian or vegan diet will further increase. Both the health and food sectors will be characterized by radical transformation, by innovation, incorporating technical technologies and promoting sustainability. The green economy is definitely a megatrend. The green economy will become a strong reference point for an ever-growing number of stakeholders in business, in politics, in society, in research. Multinational companies will ride the trend, and sustainability experts and political leaders will present green economies as a viable alternative to growth-focused economic strategies. Fundamental opposition to green growth, however, will continue to shape discourses, especially in social sciences and among activists, and a compromise will have to be reached. It's difficult to see how we can deal with the rebound effects when economic growth will continue, but we will have to differentiate between sectors and industries. Definitely, we need more recycling. We need more investments in renewable energies. We need growth here, but we need degrowth and decarbonization in some other sectors. Sustainable finance gained very strong tractions over the past 5 to 7 years. Now we may see a small setback in the context of the war in Ukraine. But altogether, the process of mainstreaming sustainable finance will gain further traction in the context of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Agenda, and accelerated efforts of energy transition in an attempt to reduce dependency also from Russia. We shall see increasing regulatory efforts to make capital markets work for sustainability transformations of industries, and we expect them to succeed. Sustainable finance will also make substantial contributions to stabilizing financial markets, though we shall see fluctuations and further differentiation of indicators across sectors. Greenwashing will remain a controversial issue, but more and more activists and consumer organizations are likely to grow in influence and keep the industry alert and try to avoid the worst forms of greenwashing. We decided to also include democracy and governance in our megatrends analysis. Democratic trends will play out differently across the spectrum of liberal democratic political systems, ranging from increasing efforts to consult experts from different professional backgrounds at national levels to a push for greater public participation in planning at the level of city governance. Outside Asia, there are growing signs that populism and the retreat of democracy might have peaked. We shall see an upsurge in public participation facilitated through the use of information and communication technologies. However, political marginalization of different kinds of communities will also remain a key feature of many societies, especially in authoritarian context. We'll see a high proportion of migrants being marginalized in politics. Digitalization will impact on election campaigns at different levels, and new political marketing opportunities will arise. Multipolar world order is one of the controversial megatrends. There's of course resistance to the development, to the formation of a multipolar world order from transatlantic perspectives, from US, from European perspectives. But we believe that geopolitics will continue to develop towards a multipolar world order, with Asia becoming a new center of gravity in world politics. China's rise will continue for a few years, but not go unchallenged. China will face serious demographic changes. Economic growth will slow down, and political protests may also occur. If the Communist Party of China is not able to rejuvenate itself in the medium term, it risks political sclerosis. that will seriously threaten economic performance. Russia and China might forge closer relations, but China is also very dependent on global markets and will try to balance its foreign relations between US, Europe, and other parts of the world, still trying to exercise strong influence in the global South and access also natural resources. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, will experience a strong revival, and the US will re-engage in foreign affairs, especially in Europe and Asia. The EU stood largely united in solidarity with Ukraine, a surprise for some, but decoupling from Russia will take its toll. Energy prices will rise, we've already seen that, but efforts to speed up energy reforms will pay off in the long run. The UN will successfully continue to broaden and to deepen its climate action and sustainability agendas and try to forge alliances across countries and nations, also including subnational governments, multinational companies, the financial industries, and non-profits. In our megatrends analysis, we wanted to go beyond the typical tech trends, sustainability, and demography. So we decided to also address social and political trends. We bundled them together under the term civilizational development. And we identified the following trends under the domain civilizational developments: diversity, individualization and loneliness, gender shifts and identity politics. They will remain important subtrends in the social sphere, especially in Western countries. However, these trends will play out quite differently across countries and political cultures, and will cause political tensions and cultural clashes, especially in the United States and Europe. We'll see more divided societies, sub-societies, if not well managed. They could create further crisis scenarios in the Western world and weaken the soft power of liberal democracies. Authoritarian states will also face major challenges, risk abrupt crisis, and even collapse if important social trends are ignored and rights will be suppressed. Migration will definitely remain a mega trend. COVID-19 crisis could only stop movements of people for a little while, and now we've seen another trend of rising migration. Migration will be looked at in more differentiated ways in many countries, including in Asia, mainly due to aging societies, labor shortages, and competition over talent. Many governments will be inclined to apply even more differentiated immigration and visa policies, including special visa for certain professions. The war in Ukraine, environmental disasters, and climate change will produce more migrants. Pull factors such as labor demand, higher wages, better business opportunities, and family reunions will also contribute to migration trends. Countries which cannot easily protect their borders, for example, Greece and Croatia, or those close to conflict regions, Lebanon, for example, will continue to face many challenges. The tension between advocacy for human rights from actors like the European Union and the reality of practices at their borders will be amplified, and new frameworks will need to be established. We concluded our book with an interview. Three so-called futurists participated in that interview: Rosa Alegria, Uma Shiras, and Andreas Rickert. And we've collected some quotes for you from these interviews. Rosa Alegria from Brazil. She has been working as a futurist for a very long time, advising companies and governments at different levels. She said, it is difficult to point to one of all these large issues facing us today, but climate change, water, the widening social gap, the threat of polarization, and potential conflicts are all things that concern me. While the players in each issue may be equally difficult to pinpoint, ignoring climate change is fatal, of course, but there are also other issues like the fact that synthetic biology might turn out to be even more dangerous than AI, as well as potentially increasing unemployment rates. Yeah. So she adopted a very comprehensive view on megatrends, on future developments, on threats in the era of the Anthropocene. Omar Shiraz from Pakistan focused on intergenerational fairness and how what we do today affects future generations. He said it does not necessarily have to do just with climate change and the state of the planet, but also things like pension policies in an age of aging societies facing the younger generation are important. Another big source of conflict is, of course, a polarized world, one in which a hegemon is declining in the US while another is rising in China, and how third countries like India will respond to these changes, position themselves in such settings. Of course, this changing world offers opportunities for cooperation as well as hopes, and like many other futurists, he's a realist, but also wanted to end on a positive note. Andreas Rickert, he's the chief executive of Fineo, a German non-profit organization, emphasized that we cannot build a sustainable world as individual nations. No nation has the power to go alone. The question remains, who is working towards creating solutions? To me, it seems that multinational organizations need the help of strong governments, and we need to address these challenges like climate actions, like sustainability transformations, inequality at many different levels, and we need to involve stakeholders from civil society, from research, and forge strong alliances to push further the good concepts to save our planet Earth and to address the most pressing social issues. When we look at megatrends, for example, sustainability transformations, we have to ask ourselves, who are the drivers of these trends? Where do the concepts come from? We have cooperated with many think tanks in our books, think tanks of different size, natures, different countries of origin and focus. The image of think tanks and the connotation of intelligence is changing. Germans, for example, used to be rather skeptical when it comes to think tanks, big lobby groups or foreign and security policy institutes, such as the RAND Corporation in the US, would come into the mind. Big money influencing big politics and so on. But we've also seen a proliferation of think tanks across the world, of smaller think tanks. For example, Oxfam, originally an aid agency, could be perceived as a leading think tank in global social affairs, poverty reduction. The German political foundations call themselves think tanks, at least at the international level. The larger think tanks, including the World Economic Forum, with its flagship Davos conference taking place every January, and with participation of top business leaders and politicians, Bruegel in Brussels, Carnegie and Brookings in Washington, Chatham House, the Center for China and Globalization in Beijing, and many others have global outreach and carry a lot of influence on policy making, though such influence may be more implicit than explicit. Since the 1990s, We've seen a growing number of reports and academic publications dealing with future analysis and with megatrends. There are now many smaller and medium-sized institutes and associations that explicitly engage in forecasts, future research, and megatrends. For example, the Association of Professional Futurists, APF, was founded in 2002 and has more than 500 members. It emerged as a network of practicing futurists who act as analysts, consultants, and speakers. I would like to draw your attention to the Global Risks Report of the World Economic Forum. We've seen the Global Risk Report 2022. We have now the Risk Report 2023 has just come out. And pay attention to the connection between risks and megatrends and opportunities. And definitely the World Economic Forum employs a large number of great talents from different countries and nations to address the most pressing issues. And its conferences receive significant attention and definitely contribute to shaping policy reform contexts in many countries and regions. Let me shed a little bit more light on think tanks, on the role of think tanks in international advice and cooperation. I would like to refer to the Global Go-To Think Tanks Index report produced by a team at the University of Pennsylvania in the US. We see that countries with the largest number of think tanks, the United States, still lead this list. And the biggest think tanks are located in the US, but China, India, and other emerging economies are definitely catching up. We have top environmental policy think tanks in Germany, and I think this Global Go-To Think Tank Index report provides you with a very good overview on the landscape of think tanks, the ever-growing number and also influence of think tanks. And it was a very valuable source of information, exchange and cooperation for us in learning about how megatrends play out in different sectors and regions. Let me also say a few words about methodologies to forecast the future or to engage in future research. There's a difference between megatrends research and future research. Megatrends research is more data and fact-based, while future research is often focusing more on connecting trends and developing scenarios. Analysis of news, data, reports, academic papers, and books, trend radars, trend scouts are important for those thinking about the future. Exchange and cooperation with think tanks from different world regions is equally important. In our book, we interviewed 37 experts, researchers, analysts from very different backgrounds, different professional backgrounds, age, gender, country, region. And yes, when it comes to strategic forecasts, a couple of powerful tools have been developed. For example, road mapping and horizon scanning, and there's a business literature on all these technologies and tools to forecast the future, and some of them are even AI-based, artificial intelligence-based, that self-learning taxonomies are developed that screen texts, that screen news, and find out how often a particular term, a particular sub-trend is mentioned in which part of the world. So we can draw on big data to identify future developments and megatrends. Let me give you a little example how artificial intelligence and NLP in particular can be used to track megatrends. Yeah, we can work with domain-specific taxonomies, develop automated processes for maintaining such taxonomies from daily data, and identify new trending topics. This has been done by a couple of innovative companies, for example, Equintel and Enercode in Berlin. They provide these services to large companies, tracking the development and forecasting the developing of future trends based on artificial intelligence and self-learning taxonomies. Thank you for your kind attention. I hope I could provide you with some good evidence for the relevance of megatrends discourses and future research in the context of addressing important challenges and risks that humanity is going to face in the era of the Anthropocene. I say goodbye from Berlin, and do not hesitate to contact me, and don't miss out on our publications related to megatrends and future research and sustainability transformations, climate actions, and so on. Bye bye from Berlin.